Our dear guests, dear viewers and fellow citizens, a good afternoon and welcome back to your favorite series, the Inter-University Debate Show. My name is Sharon Mukisa and today's topic centers around the credibility of Uganda's elections since 1961. We are here to discuss the quest of Uganda looking for fair, free elections. So with me, I have a panel, interestingly, of only law students today from Uganda Pentecostal University, and in no particular order, allow me introduce them. From the farthest is Kuja Sadrak. You are very welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
Okay, and next, the lady on the panel today is Muanguzi Gloria. We are very happy to have you. Okay, and lastly, but definitely not least, is our cute Barnabas Calvin. We are very happy to have you on the show today.
Thank you very much.
All right, so today's panel, as I had mentioned, there are law students from Uganda Pentecostal University, and they are here to discuss their perspective, what they think is the way forward in our topic today, which is the credibility of Uganda's elections since 1961. So now, before we dive into the topic today, we'd like to understand, how did we get here? How did we get to this democratic Uganda of today? Because before, it was a different system. So leading us to the history of how we got here is Barnabas. So Barnabas, would you please take us through the history?
Thank you very much, Sharon. And I'm so very much humbled that I'm proceeding and to reflect the civic citizens and all members viewing about the history of Ugandan's elections. First and foremost, we should direct ourselves to the 1961 and 1966. Remember, in 1961, it is where, in 1962, Uganda was planning and preparing for its independence. In that period, it is where Uganda, being guided by the British, they were preparing for their elections. And by then, we had various political parties. It was UPC, the People's Congress, DP, and Kabaka Party. By then, you see the coalition was all about bringing political parties together, but also, a case in point, making the tradition of Uganda also have inheritance, since Kabaka Mutesa was the president. I believe by then Uganda was ready to achieve it, but also democratically, we aren't ready. Tell you what, in 1966, we are saying conflicts come. That is between Dr. Milton Obote and also Kabaka Mutesa, to the extent that Milton Obote took over power and ordered the army to go and attack him at Luvili. So, all that, we had appreciated our independence, but however, democracy got jeopardized. Then when you go back into 1966, then we are seeing that we are having another era that is full of bloodshed, and the press could not be allowed to take control. In other words, there was no democracy. That is in 1971 up to 1979. We see the rise of the dictatorship man in history, that is Idi Amin Dada, whereby he took power over Milton Obote. And in this era, truth be told, there was nothing like elections, nothing like freedom, nothing like human rights. And in history, it is marked that Ugandans suffered a lot and many died. Even we see expulsion of the Asians and the stuff. So, from 1979, there we see a change in democracy. That is in 1980, whereby now Milton Obote came back again to take control. And surprisingly, he again reinstated coming over into political parties. However, even though elections were held, it has to be told, and it was on record, that the elections were never fair. Because first and foremost, people raised questions. How comes even though you have come into control, then you say still were the president directly? It was just a mere sabbat covering a lot. So in that very period, we are seeing now rise of another person. And many people who are not appreciative with what came into the results of the elections, we are seeing YKM7 going to boycott. And together with the National Resistance Army, they went in the bush. We are now seeing 5 years of attack and fighting for democracy again. So YKM7 went to the bush, and it was a success in 1986 when he took power together with his army, National Resistance Army. Surprisingly, when he came back, so he didn't allow political parties participate. However, they were in presence, but they didn't participate. There we had what we call a movement system. In this system, only we knew that NRA was taking control, but there was no like democracy of political parties, contest or what. In that very period, now we are seeing elections or democracy come back. It was in 2005. In 2005, they assembled an assembly and they called for political parties to come back again and participate in the elections. But the question was, will Uganda again have rule of law, democracy, be upheld or appreciated? So, for that reason, going back, they had drafted the constitution, the 1995 constitution, and it is on record that in Africa it is the most appreciated constitution, whereby it shows human rights, freedom, and also rule of law. So the constitution in 2005, it was appreciated. However, what surprisingly came is that this 1995 constitution, they removed the most important gist in the constitution, whereby the parliament voted that now let's remove the presidential limit, term limit. What did they mean by then? Since now we had come back to good democracy and coming back to rule of law, then why would you remove the term limit? So we saw now the constitution being tampered. And the moment you tamper with the constitution, that means you're tampering with the law and the elections of a country. So the elections were held, and of course those who lost never appreciated still, because the constitution was already tampered, but we had to move on, because what people appreciated then may be why they didn't try to fight back or try to raise riots, is that our past was full of terror, was full of bloodshed. So at this moment they appreciated the stability that was there, or that was brought about by NRA government, or which is NRM today. So we had to move with it. Since we have our freedom, let's just give it a blind eye. Now, in 2017, we are seeing other elections being held. And in these elections, the same thing again happened, whereby they also again tampered with the constitution, and they also removed another gist. The other time it was the term limit. Now this time around it is the age limit. The man continued ruling and taking over. So first and foremost, there we see that the president never gave respect to the constitution, to me to say. Because if at all you have come fighting for freedom of people and also democracy, I would say it would be good if you appreciate and give respect to the constitution. But since now, the first time you tampered with the term limit, now the age limit, it shows the chances of living are now becoming short and little. Yeah, so the most part that is interesting is that in 2021, we are seeing now other elections come. And it is in these elections that Ugandans faced a lot of terror. Bloodshed, killings. People expected ballot, free and fair elections, but in return they got bullets. We are seeing people from the opposition side being imprisoned. And up to date, many of them who were supporting their families and friends, they lost hope. Then when you come to the press, it is another story. Yeah, at campus we call it another banger. So, when we look on the local and international observers, they never appreciated, because there was no democracy, there was no free and fair elections. Why? Opposition side was arrested, people were killed, and the most worst thing is that internet was shut down. What does it mean? It means that the local and international observers, you never wanted them to know what is taking place. And surprisingly, our people, whom we see that they devote themselves to protecting the country with their lives, that is the army and the police, also took part, beating people. Surprisingly, some also carrying the ballot boxes into hiding. When we come to the current day today, 2025, preparing for 2026, all in all, Ugandan history on elections, it is full of hope, but also bloodshed also is remembered, and there was no democracy at all. With the electoral system, what we see, and from the past and the present, is that regardless that it is having the authority from the Constitutional Republic of Uganda, that is Article 160, 162, but is not free and is not taking part to do its role. Other people are ruling it.
Okay,
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Barnabas. Before we get to the role of the Electoral Commission, you have mentioned that there is a lot of bloodshed, there is a lot of violence. That is basically what characterizes the elections in Uganda from the period 1961 to date, to the previous elections that we've just had in 2021. A lot of people lost their lives, a lot of people were abducted. To this day, there are people that are missing and they are nowhere about where they are. So coming to, you mentioned something very crucial, and you said that according to you, you don't see democracy. There is no democracy today. So posing the same question to Gloria, I would like to understand from the history that Barnabas has given us. He has walked us through how it came to be from no democracy to shifting to where we have a multi-party system, to elections after 5 years and different changes in the constitution. Do you think that there is democracy in this country? I mean, after all, we hold elections after 5 years.
Thank you very much. And allow me use a scholar named Aristotle. In his book 3 of Power, he mentioned these words, that a person advocating for the law cannot be above the law. And this is exactly what Uganda is facing. You have the highest office above the law and everyone else under the law. You cannot have democracy put in people's faces when you're above it. That is why you're asking that we see elections every year now and then, but we still come out complaining. Why is that? Because I'm a student of the law, I always want to speak the facts. In the Constitution of the 1995, as amended, this Constitution gives the President, His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Uganda, powers, first, to appoint the Electoral Commission boss. He's the one who appoints. He's the one who appoints all the top judicial officers. and he's the one with the powers to remove them. Imagine such a scenario, and these people are expected to come and organize elections where he participates. Do you see the picture I'm painting for you? What do you expect? This is your boss, and you're organizing elections for your boss, competing with other people. What would you do? That's why you see the Electoral Commission does these things, because they expect they have only to be accountable to only their boss, and that is the president. Because if the person who gave you the job is the only person who has the power still to take it away, who are you responsible to, if not for your boss? So that's why they do all these things, not being accountable. You see, they keep treating the electoral process as if it's somebody's personal business, because there is no accountability. So I'll just add on Calvin's voice that we don't have democracy in the country currently, even with elections. From the word go, from the electoral process, from the lists, the voters' lists, you will have all these complaints year in, year out, after this election and to the other elections. No one is there to hold them accountable. You did bad in the last elections. Why are you coming again in this election to organize for us? You understand? So because some people treat democracy as a personal thing, that you're free to do this and me, I'm not. No, take an example of the recently concluded SEC elections in the NRM. His Excellency himself put two positions untampered with. His position and Hadi Chigongo. Imagine, in his condition, he says, don't touch here. For the rest of you, please follow democracy. Imagine. That is the kind of situation we have to deal with. So, yes.
You also say that there is no democracy in this country.
None.
Okay, coming to Sajak,
Yes,
I'll pose the same question to you. Do you think that there is democracy in this country? Because a lot of articles are written about Uganda, and many people call Uganda, we also call Uganda a democratic country, but is it really a democratic country?
Thank you so much. I will a little bit depart from the positions of the previous participants and say there is democracy. What I will not harmonize is the effect that however much it's there, but it is to a little extent. And why do I have to say this? It is simply because politicians have always argued that the law does not operate in space. It operates where people are. It operates where voters are. It operates where the electoral commissioners are. Why? It is to tame the characters, the conduct of the activities. And reflecting to our history as Uganda, the national principles of directive state policy, principle number 2, is very clear. Our state is governed by democratic principles. And what does this mean to a voter in my position? It means I am granted a political space that is not tainted by violence, a space that is free from intimidation, an election that I participate in that is just fair from its results, an election whose outcome, however much disputed, the judicial officers exercising their judicial rights under Article 129 in resolving these disputes in courts, we have seen petitions in the Supreme Courts, reach these decisions upholding the rule of law and democracy. That is just a picture of what democracy would be. So why I say there is democracy but to a little extent, it is because not that the country do not have the legal framework that really provide guarantees and observe electoral processes, but the gist of it all is that our legal framework has remained in an abstract. These laws have remained to operate in a vacuum. vis-a-vis its practicability. Because when you reflect from, my fellow colleague who submitted on the history, looking at the election of 1961, when we look at the 1980 election, 89, 2001 until current, you'll realize that most of these elections have been characterized by militarism, have been characterized by authoritarianism, have been characterized by violence, have been characterized by unfairness. And it becomes so interesting if I must reflect to some of these petitions. I'll just give an example of the 2016 petition by Amama Mbabazi versus Yoweri Museveni, the Electoral Commission and Attorney General. One of the issues for contention under there were unfairness in regards the tally, ballot stuffing, violence, amid these other procedural flaws. Court had to even issue structural interdicts of 2 years for the country, for the parliament to come up with laws that really bridge these lacunas, that really bridge these loopholes. But it is very absurd that in 2021 petition by Honorable Chagulanyi, it was still the issues of contention in court. Why? It is because the reforms that are supposed to be put in place from the outcome of the case of Amama Mbabazi of 2016 remained in abstract, and that is the flaw of the legal framework of Uganda, unfortunately. And in as far as my conscience is concerned, I would say yes, there is democracy, but to a little extent. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sajak. I think you emphasize that there is democracy given the fact that we have the legal framework.
Yes, please.
Because when someone looks at the Constitution, they'll say, wow, the intention of the framers of the Constitution was to have a perfect Uganda. A Uganda where laws were followed, a Uganda where every system has a law that governs it. But then now, as you say, they're operating in a vacuum. No one is enforcing them. No one is ensuring that they are being followed. So I think that is quite an interesting view. It is quite an interesting view. And I would like to hear from you, Barnabas, what you think. I mean, he has said there is democracy, but to a certain extent. So do you think that there is democracy in Uganda, or there is no democracy at all?
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate it. To submit is, I would like to give an example. If you prepare milk for your kids, you put in 2 glasses, you have 2 kids. In one glass you add in salt, the other glass you add in sugar. The truth is, when you stir, nothing will change. It will remain white. But what will change is the taste and the response from the consumer. Our government prepared for us milk. That is freedom. However, the taste, the supplements added in are different. Every person, you test them differently. Democracy, you cannot say that it is there when at the end of the day, the person is overruling the Constitution. Remember, the Constitution provides that any other law inconsistent with its provisions shall be declared null and void. But here, every time and again, the person is residing over and over again. And the worst part is, since the Constitution provides for him powers to be the president and at the same time the head of the state, now leave alone the Constitution, go to the army. Isn't he the leader?
Yes.
Now, which democracy are you talking about? Whereby even people who are supposed to protect the country with their lives, they take orders from above. That means all the system is in his hands. Is that democracy? The fact that you hold elections and at the end of the day, he has won, they have been conducted, but I don't want you to bring a blind eye on those 2 glasses of milk. People die, people are killed. You see it on TVs, on our local televisions and international TVs. You understand? You see even the army. In the recent elections of NRM, you have seen the army evolving in West. I thought the army is supposed to not involve themselves with the society inside. But it's in Uganda whereby the army will be deployed even on the polling stations. What do you expect a grandma seeing an army person holding a gun? First and foremost, will say, oh, why? Let me just go back home for peace. You understand? So, this is the thing. They give us milk, but yet the taste is different. And what is needed, the truth, is that we the consumers, we the voters, we need to stand for the Electoral Commission. Because first and foremost, the truth be told, the Electoral Commission cannot stop holding these elections. It is their constitutional right, they have to. But we voters, we cannot also run away from voting. We have to keep the faith and keep the candle burning. However, to me, our efforts now, they should live back to the leaders we appoint to represent us in the parliament. We should be hard on them. But I cannot say there is democracy at all. It is just giving us milk, but when the taste is different. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. I mean, that is from Barnabas. He thinks that there is no democracy in Uganda at all. Our panelists or our guests today may have different views and would like to know what you think in the comment section. Do you think that Uganda today is a democratic country? Or rather, do you think maybe it's democratic to some extent, to a lesser extent, to a greater extent, or simply it's just not a democratic country, as we may like to think? Well, moving on to our next question, I would like to hear from our guests what their view is on what are the factors that have contributed to the lack of credibility in Uganda's elections today. Why do you think that people have lost trust in these elections today? Starting with you.
First and foremost, all of us Ugandans and every person individually, the moment you lose into the interest into something, there are always factors behind it. I shall say the intimidations given to people each and every other day, they make people lose interests. Why? You cannot be struggling with poverty in the country, struggling with your life, what should I eat tomorrow? And then listen, or hear news that your son has been killed in rallies, your daughter has been killed on rallies. You hear that you voted for someone and the ballot in the polling station, you were like, oh, sure, this person will win. But at the end you feel like he hasn't passed through. So you reach at a moment that you are now giving up on elections, you're concentrating on your own life. First and foremost, you've said, let me first concentrate on my poverty, improve myself financially. Otherwise, spending all my time on choosing the right leader, but yet things come out differently and the end is death, it won't make sense. The second reason why Ugandans are losing interest is that the Electoral Commission is not independent. Right from the start, the president, the chairperson, is appointed by His Excellency. At the same time, is the one who guides them. Choose this one to be your help or your assistant. To a layman's understanding, if you've been appointed by your boss to lead the company, would you drive yourself against the rules and regulations you've been given? You cannot. Knowing that the person ordering you is the head of state, is the head of army. So, when you look back, you will say, let me also concentrate on my life. I need improvement.
You think your view is that there are so many powers that have been given to the president, some of them unnecessarily.
Obviously.
Okay.
They are not even given, he gave them to himself. It's just like our history of all the presidents who've been that have been ruling Uganda. Maybe apart from Kabaka Mutesa too, like in our history. But the rest, they have been giving powers to themselves. And we appreciate their struggle by that, in due respect. Yeah. So with those reasons, Ugandans will continue to be in fear. But what we can do, maybe, we as voters, is remaining with the truth. Don't lose the hope. We should keep voting. We should keep the candle burning, because the moment we stop voting, it means to be the chance for them to take over. And at the same time, we cannot pray to go back in our history, to be ruled by the army, or the terror, or the trauma. So the only thing that can save us is still the ballot. However, what I would call for is fighting for our rights, and also calling up the world at large.
Okay, thank you very much, Barnabas.
You're welcome.
And from your perspective, you think that there is lack of independence from the Electoral Commission and other factors. You think those are the factors as to why people have lost interest, or rather there is lack of credibility in the elections that are being held by the Electoral Commission? Okay, thank you very much. And coming to Gloria, posing the same question, what do you think are the factors that are making people lose interest or credibility in the Electoral Commission process?
Thank you. Number one factor is accountability. We cannot talk about democracy and avoid the word accountability. And where there is no accountability, we cannot expect democracy to prevail. The people of Uganda have lost faith in the Electoral Commission, have lost even the slightest to these elections, to an extent that some are just saying, why am I even going for the voting? There is a saying that it's only a fool who keeps doing the same thing but expecting different results. In his submissions, Calvin, he said, in the 2011 petitions in court, same results. When His Excellency, Honorable Chaglani lost and went to the same court, same results. Of course, court gave recommendations, not acted upon, but you still expect us to have the same faith. Come and vote. In case it doesn't go your way, please go to the courts. Take an example where on the village where you stay, that the daughter of the chairperson is the one you fought with. How enthusiastic would you be to go and take your case to that chairperson? How? The president has gone all around the system. He has the system in his hands, in his palms. So that to one extent that Ugandans have understood it now. It is clear that whether you run to the courts, he will be there. Whether you go to the police, he is right there. Whether you, everywhere. So that even the civil communities that would help. I've even had people say, even these observers are being, some of them are being staged, that they come to observe elections, but they're just staged. Imagine, to that extent, that observers are being staged. Where is the hope? Where is the accountability? So if you say that Ugandans have lost hope, there is reason. Yes. You cannot keep doing the same thing. By now, people now know that we are going to vote, but we know the winner. Yes. And even if this one doesn't go through, even if it goes to court, majority will know the answer. So that is the current situation in Uganda. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So mainly it's because of lack of accountability. We don't have measures in place to hold these people accountable.
So they always get away.
And they're always getting away with what they do. Okay, thank you very much, Gloria. From accountability to perceived lack of independence by the Electoral Commission, we'd like to hear your view, Sadrak, on what do you think are the factors as to why there is lack of trust and lack of credibility in the Electoral Commission's process?
It's an interesting question that you deserve a thanks for. I applaud you for that.
Thank you.
Now when we talk about trust in the Electoral Commission, I want to believe that there are about 3 to 4 tenements that determine trust that the public could perhaps uphold or have in the Electoral Commission. And the first tenement here is what Calvin talked about, which is the independency of the Electoral Commission as a body itself. And he made it very clear, I would love to adopt that, but just reiterate and agitate it that in as far as the incumbent, who is also a candidate to be in the upcoming election, still is the one that appoints or compositions the Electoral Commissioners. That is a prima facie opinion that an individual like I, before I even look at the public, would question that. And now when we look at that, this is also analogous to what is happening in the court martials. When we reflect from the judgment of 31st January 2025 in the Supreme Court, in the case of Attorney General versus Michael Kabaziguruka, the issues for contention was basically the independence of the General Court Martial. So you'll realize that the General Court Martial in its quorum has an individual called a political commissar, whose responsibility is to promote political education in the country and then holds allegiance to the government. He is appointed by the president, at the same time is sitting in a court that we expect to deliver justice to the aggrieved. So in as far as the president still has got the mandate to appoint the composition of this Electoral Commission, I would love to say the public shall always raise red flags with questions of its transparency. That is one tenement. The second tenement that I think is very relevant is transparency. And in my diction and composure of transparency, here reflects so much into the statistical bit of the results, which starts from voter register updates to the electoral process of tallying and then the result output. This has always remained in contention, if I must say so. In the electoral petition of 2006 by Dr. Chiza Besigye versus Yoweri Museveni, the Electoral Commission and Attorney General, this was one of the contentions and disputes, issues raised by court for resolution. And it was observed in the judgment that polling stations had procedural flaws of delays of returning results. And the question in this delay was reduced by the arguments to the fact that it is a mechanism for manipulating these results. So that alone contributes so much into either whether the Electoral Commission should be credited for its transparency or not. And lastly, one thing that has dominated and always flowed from the interest and passion of the citizens of Uganda in need of voting is the political atmosphere when it comes to these elections. And the political atmosphere is always one with tension, one with intimidation, one with high stake of violence, and one with very irregular judicial decisions that do not uphold the rule of law. I'll try to cite still that case of Besigye of 2006 electoral petition. When court was resolving issue of violence, the late Honorable Justice Kanyehamba, may his soul rest in peace, posed a very sensitive, substantial, and credible question. He asked, if there are 1,000 birds perched on a tree and one bird is shot, what happens to the rest? They automatically run away. So this is what happened. Actually, in 2006, voters were actually shot with posters of Besigye, dead. So as long as the political atmosphere during the progressive elections that we have and we are yet to have in 2026 is still characterized by violence, the public, including I in person, shall always stand not to conform to that. Perhaps the doctrine of necessity will mandate that this is protested and we have change. When you look at electoral observers, perhaps the accredited one by the Electoral Commission, go through these arrests. In 2021 record is clear. 17 of the electoral observers were abducted. Not that because what they were doing was not within the framework of the law, or it was illegal. They were within. It was the Electoral Commission that accredited them to perform this. Besides other civil society organizations and human rights bodies. So, in as far as the attainment of independency, the attainment of transparency, and the attainment of a very clear space, not characterized by timidness, intimidation, violence, is not one that is resolved. The election shall always remain to be discredited, and the public perhaps may not have that trust in the election. And that is why you will always continue to realize from statistics that there are polling stations that register a very low turn-up of voters. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much, Shadrach. He has given us 4 points that are very crucial as to why there is lack of credibility in the electoral process of Uganda. So that has been our show for the first half, and our guests have discussed, have given us the history of where we came from as a country to where our democracy is today. And we have discussed the various factors as to why people have lost trust in the Electoral Commission and as to why there is lack of credibility in the Electoral Commission's processes. So we'd like to hear what you would say in the comment section. What is your view and what is your perspective? We are taking a short minute break and we shall be right back.
Digital rights are those human rights and legal rights that allow individuals to access, use, create and publish digital media or to access and use computers, other electronic devices and telecommunication networks. Digital rights include a right to freedom of expression, information and communication through technology, a right to privacy and data protection, a right to credit for personal works, a right to universal and equal digital access, a right to identity, a right to anonymity, a right to be forgotten, and a right for protection of minors, among others. The state's digital rights are frequently violated through various unfair actions, for example, blockage of websites and social networks, theft of credentials, unauthorized use of people's data for personal gain, privacy intrusion, online censorship, arrests and intimidation of online users, internet blockages, and the proliferation of laws and regulations that undermine the potential of technology to drive social, economic, and political development worldwide. It is hence every citizen's responsibility to respect rights of other digital users and to speak out or report to the responsible parties when one's rights are violated.
Welcome back after the break. We have a new guest joining us, who is Jessica Apipawe, still from Uganda Pentecostal University. We are very happy to have you on the show.
Happy to be here as well.
Okay, going back to our topic today, which is the credibility of elections in Uganda today, as everyone on the guest panel today has given their view, I would like to get Jessica's view on whether she thinks that there is democracy in this country. So Jessica, do you think that Uganda is a democratic country, not by just words, but by applicability and practice?
Well, thank you so much. Uganda is the pearl of Africa. I thank God for that. And I'm proud to be Ugandan because there are loopholes, but still, I'll give an example. If there is the wrong side, there is always a good side. I know. But still, we can't keep quiet because of the wrong sides. And we keep quiet because there are some good sides. So I would like to utter out some few things that are not really credible. For example, I'll give an example of the 2021 election. My major point is the press. The press is not that fair to the opposition part. This thing, I believe to my own understanding that it should be equal. Something that is pertaining elections should be equal. There should be equality. But I see there is much of some other party than the other. The opposition is given little access to the press. By here I mean they are not so much displayed on the televisions as they are making their public campaigns. There is some limitation in that. And that makes our pearl, this pearl of our, this Uganda that is the pearl of Africa, it makes it meaningless in that kind of way. I'd like to pin out that if our country needs to be a fair and an admirable country, there must be free access to the press by every party. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much, Jessica. And with that, you still side with those that say there is no democracy in Uganda?
Oh, thank
Yeah.
you so much. Democracy is not there. As I would depend so much on my point, like I said before, in our modern world, the press is the voice to the people. How will I speak to my people when I'm limited to the press? No way. No way. But still, this needs to be equalized for it to be a more democratic country that we wish it to be.
Okay, thank you very much. Jessica has given her view of whether she thinks there is democracy in the country or not. And definitely her view is that there is no democracy because of the press, limitations on the press, and opposition cannot express themselves and their views and their political opinions out to the people. So coming to Sajak, I would like to, we have mentioned the different challenges that are within the country Uganda, are within the electoral process, the electoral commission, and you've given us 4 tenets that we cannot forget. So with those challenges, what do you think are the recommendable electoral reforms that should be taken in order to deal with those challenges?
Thank you so much. Where there is a problem, there must be a solution. And that has been the quest of all Ugandans that realize that the right to vote is a guaranteed constitutional right under Article 59 of the Constitution. The state only comes here to protect that right. So in as far as the first statement of independence is concerned, the heart of my argument of independence based on the criteria of forming these electoral bodies or commission. And in my view, we need to adopt reforms. Uganda is not the only country that was colonized. That up to 2025, we have not recovered still from the loopholes that have been created. When we look at countries like South Africa, South Africa's criteria of electoral composition is to the effect that, one, civil societies are given an opportunity to come up with an individual in the commission. Religious organizations are given an opportunity. The parliament is given an opportunity. So, if Uganda can only adopt multi-stakeholders appointments for vetting only by the president, if must be, it would be a very substantial remedy for the problem of independence. For as long as the president, who is always a candidate also in this election, still appoints the electoral commissioners, the question of independence shall always remain a fact of doubt. That is one. The other attainment I talked about was the attainment of transparency. The attainment of transparency, here I basically mentioned clearly about how electoral processes are done. Because at the end of it all, it is circles around the activities of elections, starting from voter register, updates, to the votings, the tallying, and the results declaration. Not forgetting the judicial officers who are our ops of alternative dispute resolutions at times. So, in as far as this is not worked on, transparency shall as well be discredited. In my view, why all this is happening is strictly not because the legal framework is not there. Like I said prior, these frameworks are there, but they have remained to operate in a vacuum. And why have they remained to operate in a vacuum? It's simply because much or more of power is invested in the incumbent. Perhaps if I am an electoral commissioner who must discharge my duty, upholding the rule of law, the fairness, and all that. But remember, I've been appointed by the president. Now that instills and puts in me a pressure, an administrative pressure of also putting behind my mind that however much I do this, there is someone that gave me this job. Why was not yet someone down the village there, but I was chosen? So we have these legal frameworks, but its enforceabilities have always flawed. Now when I'll talk about voter registers and updates, you're going to realize that anyway, perhaps Uganda progressively realizes its development. Being third world country, yes, the budget may not be enough. For example, apparently, the Electoral Commission came up with about 777 billions of budget to uphold the upcoming 2026 elections. But it has been disbursed a deficit of 159 billions. Now, the deficits of 159 billion will create a lacuna. It will create a loophole in one way or another. But in as far as Uganda is developing and progressively realizes that, that does not impeach or do away with the fact that the country, the state, the Electoral Commission, other stakeholders, the force, we have police, the UPDF must, if mandated, do all the necessary measures to see that these rights are realized. Our national objective and directive principles of state policy. 2, says the state shall be ruled in observance of democratic principles. And in as far as we divert from that, we are not learning from our preamble. Because when you look at our preamble, and history of the country. Our quest is to recover from militarianism, authoritarianism, and at the end of it all, realize a realistic, pragmatic, and an election that can be thanked and appreciated. That is the second tinment. Now, delving into the third tinment that has always remained at high stakes of debates and arguments is the atmosphere with which elections are held. The atmosphere is always that is very chaotic. High deployment of military. When I reflect to the constitutional framework of Article 208 of the Constitution that provide for the UPDF, that specific framework does not guarantee and mandates the UPDF the role of elections. It is the Electoral Commission. When you look at Article 12 of our Constitution, the police is supposed to maintain law and order. And simply that is why we have them. But look at an atmosphere where polling stations have been heavily deployed by the military. This continues to scare away voters. Voters keep intimidated. It was very unfortunate in 2021. Actually, 2020. It was 2020 campaigns when a journalist called Moses Obogi was shot in the face with a live bullet simply because he was recording Chagulanyi trying to address a community of voters on how he is intending to have a petition against President Yoweri Museveni for violation of human rights. Now, Article 29 of our constitutional framework gives us the power to associate freely. And that is why at the end of it all, we have the Political Parties and Organizations Act. But our state has always continued to follow these legal frameworks. And I shall always maintain my statement, yes, we have the frameworks. Why these laws have remained in a vacuum is because the question of legal recognition of the framework vis-a-vis the practicability has always remained a question of doubt. And as far as that is concerned, Uganda may not appreciate the aspects of democracy, the aspects of good governance, the aspects of accountability, the aspects of upholding the rule of law. And at the end of it all, that is why the country is in a quest of a dire need to change the leadership. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Shadrach. That was very elaborate. I mean, all the tenets and explaining to us what needs to be done, what needs to be changed so as Uganda can be fully viewed as a democratic country, both in theory and also on ground applicability. So thank you very much, Shadrach. And moving on to Gloria, I would like to understand, what do you recommend, or what would be the recommendations that you would give to the Electoral Commission to reform and ensure that the elections are free, fair, and credible?
Thank you very much. First of all, to ensure credibility, we're talking about democracy, we're talking about accountability, we're talking about trust. And I like the way he was saying, there is this law, there is that law, and all this would just be enough to have everything in order. But when we see the problems and the challenges we've been facing around these elections, and if you've been keen enough to follow the pattern, they will always lead you to one road. The pattern is there. When you see the nice laws that have been put in place to govern all these institutions, to ensure free and fair elections, why aren't they functioning? Why is it that when somebody petitions and goes to the courts, they are going, but already they know they will not get a fair verdict? Why is that so? You will see a pattern there. Accountability, you will see a pattern there. Free will of the people, you will see a pattern there. Results, you will see a pattern there. So, in line with the reform, in line with the recommendations to install, by the way, we are not very bad. It's not like Ugandans are very difficult people. They can never organize. I laughed actually when he was saying that we're not the only people who are colonized. It's like we're using that in saying that we are moving steadily. People remember we are colonized. No.
Remember where we came from.
Yes. It's not like that. We are moving. We are from the stages where everyone was just taking power by force. Now to this point where elections have been organized. The part that is lacking is that credibility that we're here to discuss today. That credibility, where people can have trust in the system. When somebody is going for elections and they say that, oh, this one is standing to count our votes, so I'll stand this side or the other side. And you have that trust. Remember those elections we used to have in schools? And you're sure the teacher is not interested in your elections, whoever is there to count. So you just stand, and when they win you or you win, everyone is happy and you move on. No one is going to say, no, I think this teacher Gundi is cheated. So we need to, first of all, ensure that there is independency, first of all, of the bodies that are conducting these elections. Which takes me back to who appoints the EC board, the EC boss. You cannot have the president running for elections where he appointed the one who is going to announce. Going back to the elections I've just told you about in schools, imagine if one of the head boys contesting is the one who appointed the teacher who is going to count the marks. How would that picture look to the students who are going to come for the vote, for the election? See that picture. So first of all, we need to, as Ugandans, the unfortunate part of it is that when people live in a very bad situation for a long time, they get used to the bare minimum. Now this is what I call a bare minimum. That, okay, elections are there, we have our peace, let's just be. You understand? So, because right now Ugandans, I don't expect people to just give up, because the longer, the bigger part has been done. We are now already here. Elections are happening. We just need to fix a few things here and there, and we'll have ourselves in a good place as Uganda regarding elections and credibility. Coming back to the Electoral Commission, I recommend that Ugandans, the elders, the stakeholders, these civil societies, human rights defenders should really not just say words. I always see them on talk shows, speaking very strong words, very optimistic, giving us hope. But when they leave the studios, it stops right there. People should take action and do something about it. Say, okay, why are we having this? For example, why isn't the judge able to decide independently? Can we take away that part that refuses him to act independently and see how things move? Why is the Electoral Commission having powers to shut down all media in the country and is not answerable to anyone? You understand? What can we do about it? Let's try and do it and see the results. Instead of people just talking a lot of words in the studios and say, no, this was bad, that was bad. Let's find solutions. At least I am praying and hoping that if we start doing these solutions one by one, make sure that people respect the media. Make sure that people respect independency. How can we have a court that is not independent and we want to be democratic? How can we have an electoral commission? Imagine, that is the only hope that citizens have in a country for anything to change in the country. But imagine, that whole body is not independent. So we need to start fixing. They're small things. I think, in brief, that if we reduce the powers of the president, I have nothing against him. He can remain president, but let him be president in that office. But he's the commander of the army. He's the one appointing EC. He's the one in the courts. Everyone is answerable to him. That is a lot of power. You're giving him conflict of interest. And this is why we are being affected down here. So that would be my humble recommendation, that let the elders do their job. Let these human rights organizations not sit in the offices and talk so bad and so good and come out and, let's say, from the past elections, what have all these bodies done to contribute to see that we don't go back from where? What happened in the previous elections? Who has done anything? Apart from talk, small talk and, you know, who has done anything? I would like to see some of that. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Gloria. I mean, given the fact that you are studying Bachelors of Laws, so you're going to go back and advocate and not end in studio and take up action.
Yes.
Yes, so at least we are waiting for you.
You
to
can
lead us
start.
all.
You can always start. You don't need to wait for me.
Okay, thank you very much for what your view is. And coming to Barnabas, I'd like to understand, what do you think would be the recommendations for the Electoral Commission to have reforms that are going to ensure that elections are credible enough?
Thank you very much. First and foremost, I will still base my points on he who is ruling, and it is he who can make a change. To my submissions, we Ugandans, even though we make the fight, even though we make the struggles, but if he does not make the change, we shall continue to be in this cycle over and over again. So currently the ballot is the honeypot that Ugandans have. And the system of harvesting this honey has to change. If at all the harvester every time is using fire to collect this honey, the bees will run away, even the honey will get spoiled, and at the end the consumers won't have anything. What do I mean by this? I would pray His Excellency to remove these loopholes. He himself, first and foremost, appreciating the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda, and again giving freedom to the Electoral Commission. What do I mean? Let the Electoral Commission be independent. At this time around, I pray and I wish to see that the polling stations, there is no army, there are no bullets, there are no fights. We are not seeing a police officer carrying boxes, fixing them there before the time even of voting comes. I only expect to be seeing peace. Because the Electoral Commission, even if it handles these elections, but still these loopholes come again and again and again, then we are losing the guest of honey in the ballot. Instead of having a ballot, we shall be having bullets again. And it is my humble prayer, we, the voters, and I take ourselves to be the bees preparing this honey. Let us be cooperative. Let us stand together. You see, whenever the harvester comes and uses fire, instead of smoke, the truth, he won't come back to your hive. I would second with my brother, there is something he talked about that was said by the justice, that if a bullet is shot to one of the birds in a thousand and in a tree, the rest will run away. It is the same thing in this harvest. If we keep using fire than smoke, the truth, we will never have democracy in Uganda. So the only solution that can help this upcoming 2026 election be a credible, especially being organized by Electoral Commission, is by His Excellency giving freedom to Electoral Commission, and also making an order that let there be no army. Let the army come in case there is a bomb that has erupted and we need their help. But not an army coming on the time of voting, holding guns and intimidating. Let the press be free. I would like to see that. And at this moment, let Ugandans now at least have zero reasons to say the tallies don't match at all. How would you raise that question? If at all, people are free, there is peace, about 100 carefree, and first and foremost, to supplement, we are not saying the army fighting people who are coming to vote. We are not seeing killings. We are not seeing sticks fighting each other. Now driving back the point to what I said, we also, the voters, have to cooperate. Let us not reach on the polling station, then we fight each other. The one thing also, the weakness that the Electoral Commission is facing is that even we voters were not cooperative. We have brought our grievances to fight even our fellows. Yet at a certain level of point, we are all having a common goal, which is having free and fair elections. You do what has brought you, come and vote. The other person saying main words, just give it peace, don't fight back. On the previous elections, you are seeing that NRM supporters in videos and on television are fighting each other, beating each other, the sticks, breaking their chairs, even not the police or the army, but we ourselves. What does it mean? Let us look at the common goal, is defending the ballot. How will you defend the ballot when you reach at the polling station? Instead of making the vote to the person you want, you now want to show the grievances to the other party. How dare you vote for that person? No. Do what is required for you. This one will also help the Electoral Commission to have independence of these elections. If that is done, cooperativeness between the voters and also His Excellency, allowing the army and the police not to participate or show any violence or intimidation to the people, I believe we can be having the greatest results in the upcoming 2026 elections.
Thank you very much, Barnabas. You mentioned such a crucial point, cooperation amongst the voters. It is true that on voting day, many people tend to fight each other. And that is why some people may claim that is why we would have these forces come in to try and calm the situation down. Or as voters are chaotic, making noise, saying harsh words. I think that is very important for us to note. On that day, let us be calm, peaceful. Let us do what has taken us there in the first place, to vote. So let us vote peacefully and not attract what we don't need in that place. I think that is very crucial. So the guests have mentioned what their recommendations are to the Electoral Commission to ensure that there are free and credible elections in the next phase, which is 2026. So we'd like to understand what you think should be the recommendation to the Electoral Commission to ensure that voting or the electoral process is free and fair. We'd like to hear your comments down below. So moving on to Jessica. Having mentioned the recommendations towards the Electoral Commission, and given the fact that today we have civil societies, there are very many civil societies today that are trying to fight for democracy, trying to fight for what is right. So what do you think is their role in society today? What do you think civil societies should do to ensure that there is enough civic education, to ensure that people are voting and still interested in these elections?
Okay. Thank you, moderator. According to my opinion, I think these organizations should go to the ground, should find their way to the local person, the voter specifically. These voters need awareness. Most of them are pessimistic. Most of them have lost the hope. They need to be told again that things can change. As my brother said, my brother Barnabas told the House that the voters fight each other. That means there is a gap that needs to be filled up. I believe if the organizations come up and sensitize the people of how to be united, because an African proverb goes that the combined teeth break the bone. And if we are so together in one spirit, we can fight this. We can make our strong Uganda. You know, it starts from a single person and flourishes to the other. It starts from you to someone else. And I think these people need sensitization. Like I said earlier, the organizations should go to the first person who votes and tell them what to do. with that way, it can be sorted out.
Okay, thank you very much, Jessica, for your view. And that has been our show today. Our topic being the credibility of elections in Uganda since 1961 to date. The guests, oh yes, please, you'd like to?
Okay, thank you so much. There is something that I feel I should make mention of that has always also remained serious issues of concern. I would want to start from their submissions. She submitted on the role of voter education. He also hinted on that, which is very relevant. Because at the end of the day, it is very important that the citizens, right down there, know why they should vote. What importance do they hold as a voter? He may be informed, perhaps because he has gone to school. I may be informed, but someone deep down in Manafa there may not have the same cognition. So this is something that is very important. However, one thing I've observed about voter education, because our legal framework encompasses observers, civil society organizations, as well to go with this voter education. But when we look at the statistics and reports from our Electoral Commission, you will realize that civil society organizations that are very strong with advocacy of human rights, rule of law, democracy, good governance, and accountability, mention all that, have always been challenged in accreditation for them to participate and have the civic education. And in as far as that is done, the individuals, citizens down there have no connection to the government. Because at the end of the day, it is the human rights network that connects me from down Manafa to the government. So, yes, we need the voter education. And the primary role here is mandated upon the Electoral Commission. But may the Electoral Commission amplify and be fair on accreditation processes for these observers and civic educators. And as well also to the observers. Lastly, what I would love to add is that there have always been a very selective enforcement or execution of these electoral laws and policies. And you will realize that these electoral laws and policies favor the ruling government. I'll just give an example. Apparently, the roadmap is out. The roadmap states that presidential campaigns shall start from 4th of October 2025 to 12th of January 2025. Those are strictly 100 days. So, the policy, yes, recognizes and requires me, Honorable Chagulanyi, to move in 146 districts of Uganda in 100 days. I think it's a little bit unequal and not fair. Why not fair? You will realize that government have continuously always had engagements with the communities throughout their programs. And as they have these programs, however much the campaigns may have not yet been legalized and open publicly, they are campaigning. But at the end of it all, a roadmap is going to be released, and there are 100 days to go through 146 districts. A deficiency of 46 districts. So, in as far as these electoral policies and laws as well are not equal in its institutional establishment and execution, the Electoral Commission, together with the election, shall always have a a very big deficit. And according to me, I think we have not learned from the past history. Because when we point and look at the 1980 elections, after a very harsh regime from Amin, coming to the 1989 elections, why we are agitating for this is because we want to do away with militarism. We want to do away with authoritarianism. And even when you look at the 1994 elections or any other election that has been conducted by movements that have not included partisan politics, you will realize that this has been adopted even in our current elections. Because how relevant is it? Yes, we have got the legal framework of the Political Parties and Organizations Act that recognizes these parties. And most are opposition. But in as far as they are in the playing field of politics, they have been denied expression. Violence. They have been silenced. They have been replaced. To me, it is as equal, synonymous as taking us back to our history of non-partisan politics. They remain to operate in papers. They remain to operate in the statutes. And as far as that is concerned, the will of the people, which is the mandate of our constitution, is not realized. And unfortunately, this is a constitutional right that I am entitled to, you are entitled to, someone out there is entitled to. The state has a mandate to protect it. And as far as the state does not act in its mandate, we shall always continue to follow the rule of law. We shall always have democracies that are questioned. We shall always have governance that questions of accountability have been reasoned on. And at the end of the day, we are not moving on. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much, Shadrach, for that clear elaboration of possibly taking us back to where we are coming from of a non-partisan politics. I don't think we would like to be back there. So thank you very much, Shadrach, for sharing your view with us and your perspective. As we are concluding our show today, we'd like to hear any closing remarks from Gloria, just in a few sentences.
Thank you very much. My closing remarks is that the people of Uganda should not give up on elections, because it is the right of everyone to vote. And it is the only way we can respect the Constitution, which says all the power belongs to the people. But the only way that power is going to be put together is through voting. The government is not going to come and ask everyone what you feel and how you want to be governed, except through a voting process. So Ugandans should be patient with the Electoral Commission, and to the other extent, adding on to my submission, the stakeholders should take action and not take these matters for granted. We speak about and just leave them there. I believe even a journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step. Yeah. Would respect that step. Imagine if every other election, some small change is made, some small is changed, the cup will soon be full. Yes, those are my last remarks.
Okay,
yes.
Thank you very much, Gloria. She calls for action, and we hope after this there will be change indeed. So coming to Barnabas, your concluding remarks to our viewers?
The concluding remarks, thank you very much, is that Ugandans, we need to stand together in this fight. It is a fight. Yeah. And most importantly, let's come back to our motto, for God and my country. Let it not be against individual, but all our faith and hope to the Lord, but in a way that we are in right, supporting the Electoral Commission, doing the right things, we shall achieve the goal.
Okay, thank you very much, Barnabas, and for reminding us of what our motto is. I mean, very many people forget, and some of them have changed it for God and my stomach. Let's remember that it's for God and my country. Let us be patriotic, keep voting, and keep being hopeful, and standing to always vote in every process. So coming to Jessica, your concluding remarks to our viewers?
Thank you, moderator. Mine is about remembering the Constitution. Since this Constitution is for the people, besides our government is a constitutional republic, our country is a constitutional one. Let's stick to the Constitution. Let's stick to the laws, to the rules that are correct. Let's not meander around, especially the Electoral Commission. Let it be fair and free through observing all that we have talked about. Otherwise, this country, as it is, the Pearl of Africa, it would remain if what we've said is taken under action, as my colleagues have stated it out. Besides, I would like to talk about this. I'm praying that our opposition I'm praying that it should remain connected together. They should link up. They shouldn't divide. For me, I'm for NUP, for the other one is for DP, the other one is no. Let's be one person because we are fighting against one cause. Once we come that together, I believe we'll fight this and we'll do this for God and my country.
Okay, thank you very much. Very passionate about this country, and I hope that all that we've indeed discussed is put into action and we see a better Uganda. And coming lastly but not least to Shadrach, your concluding remarks to our viewers.
Thank you so much. It is always said that the law must not only be done, but it must be seen to be done. So what I'm trying to say here is that may the public authorities, that includes the Electoral Commission, the police, the military, the parliament, and all other stakeholders, like civil societies, religious organizations, continuously amplify and advocate for the need of democracy, one that is free and fair, one that has accountability. It stems from action, and action is a verb. It's not a statement that is spoken and left like a noun or a name that is just spoken. I'm called Okuja. It is a verb. It must be done. And I will want to reiterate and substantiate, adopt the submission of my other colleagues that as Ugandans, the mantle remains in our hands. And that would mean we do what we're supposed to do. And these are always responding to these electoral laws. When time for election comes, like it has been said, let's have the voting go in and leave the rest to other stakeholders. So, in summary, in as far as these are not observed, we are seemingly landing into a lawless electoral nation, which is an absurdity of a republic of Uganda. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much. That has been our show today, and rotating on the topic of credibility of elections in Uganda since 1961. Our guests today have been special guests from Uganda Pentecostal University, and they have shared their views with us. And we cannot wait to hear what you have to say about the same in the comment section below. Don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe. I have been your host, Sharon Mukisa. Until next time.